Hey, y'all, welcome to Minneapolis 360, y'all. I am Anthony Taylor riding shotgun with my girl Glam Life Kim, my homie Glenn Golden. Always a pleasure to be here on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, coming to you live from the beautiful KMOJ studios. My sister is in the building. What's happening?
Yes, just getting ready for Juneteenth. I was here just trying to get this stuff together.
You got a lot going on for Juneteenth too, don't you?
Do. We are at the Minnesota State Capitol tomorrow.
I know that. Glenn was telling me. That's big.
It is.
Bobby Joe champion?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that awesome? It's going to be a beautiful thing.
It's going to be a real beautiful thing. And one of the things I know, if you're involved in it, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do what I do best.
You good at what you do, sister.
Thank you.
Love it, y'all. We're going to talk about Juneteenth. We're going to get into it.
Yes.
Kim, I think it's important. You know, that's coming up. The celebrations are coming up.
It's a holiday.
It's a holiday.
Can you believe it? It is a holiday.
Finally.
You
know, they finally understand how the significance of that is to our people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and the good thing about it is so many activities going on today, tomorrow, this weekend. I just encourage folks, if you can get out and you can be able to participate, bring your loved ones, bring your family, bring your kids. And not only that, Kim, I just think it's important if you can, talk about Juneteenth where they understand it and just thinking it's just a day off. Like, what's the significance of it?
Right. And it's so weird because even they're trying to figure out, like, well, how do we call you guys African Americans? Do we call you black?
Right.
So we need to educate them.
That's right. That 100% right. And one thing about it too is just like ask a question, right? Ask a question. Don't assume. So
right.
And to me, I love it. And one of my favorite parts of the show, not the show, but just this show in general, is to talk about Juneteenth. And I want to bring on somebody who is an elder, somebody who's a historian, somebody who knows the ins and outs of what Juneteenth means to our community. She has been a long time respected community member, ran Juneteenth on her own as well for a long period of time. And Miss Rose McGee, can you hear us, my queen, and welcome to KMOJ again.
Hey, Rose.
Well, hi. You all, I tell you, you got the energy going over there. Thank you.
Don't we?
We're excited talking about Juneteenth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I am author of the play Kumbaya, the Juneteenth story. And one of the last lines that the character, Frederick Douglass, says is, Jubilee done come.
I heard that.
So that's what we're doing here. We're celebrating, and we deserve to celebrate.
Yes.
And as you said, not only celebrate, we also have to educate while we're celebrating. So.
Right.
That's 100%, and I'm glad you're here. We'll also have Miss Jolene Jackson come on and join us too. But Miss McGee, just tell folks who and most of the Minneapolis area knows you, but just tell people who you are and kind of your story a little bit, because I love the foundational pieces that you bring to this conversation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm founder of what we call sweet potato comfort pie. Have you heard of that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
Well, good. Sadly, it grew out of a time that was very painful for me. I was watching how hopeless the faces of folks were looking on television after the murder of young Michael Brown in Ferguson, and felt compelled to do something because we'd just finished going through that long trial, involving the murder of young Trayvon Martin. And I just felt I needed to do something this time, and truly was led to believe to take sweet potato pies down there, of all things. And when I took them down, what I discovered was people just wanted to talk, and they wanted to share how respect is not being given, and they wanted that. So coming back home, after I took the pies down and shared, I realized we need to do something right here at home. I live in Golden Valley, and Golden Valley is right on the edge of North Minneapolis, and we have our issues right here. Mm-hmm. So I contacted our mayor, Shep Harris, at the time and said, what can we do? And so we took the concept of sweet potato comfort pie and we began to make it a community thing. So on the weekend of Martin Luther King holiday, which is another holiday that took a lot of effort to become noticed,
Yep.
So we made, over that weekend, we made the number of pies that Dr. King's age would have been. So here in 2023, we made 94 pies, because if he were alive, he would have been 94.
Wow.
But then people have conversations, around who you'd like to gift a pie to, based upon your caring and your sharing and concern. And so that's how those 90 pies get distributed out into the community. But we didn't just stop there. We make those pies on several occasions, and we certainly have now gotten a lot of national and even international recognition for it. And we don't do it for recognition, but we just appreciate how people have really gravitated towards it. So that's one thing in terms of who I am. I'm the founder of Sweet Potato Comfort Pie.
And I've had the pleasure of having your sweet potato pie many, many times. And I've always said I'm a sweet potato pie snob, right? I'm not even going to sit up here and front Miss McGee. And your pie is one of my favorite pies to have. So I definitely have had your pie, and I appreciate the work that you do. And I'm always so glad to have you on the show, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about too is obviously, talk about you, but also just the legacy of our people. I mean, we are a proud group of people that came to this country enslaved. We brought so much to this country even before emancipation of slavery. So I'd love for you to talk about just the history of our arrival in this country as we come up on a Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah, something that really does need to be expanded upon, and somebody needs to do more art around it, is, Black people were here. We were here before slavery, but we don't hear about that much. And who were we, and how did we get here? And it makes sense that we were here because we were all over. We were first. Those who know the origins of history know that it began in what has now shaped into the continent of Africa. We know that. But here in this country, it's important. For years, we've known, many of us, Tony Carter, so many of us, Mother Katie Sample, who's done so much work in this area, we've known that we have to teach outside of school, because the schools are not going to provide, have not provided, the kind of information that makes our children proud, the kind of teaching and instructions that make our children want to get up and go to school every day. And if we could bring that into the schools every day, I think we would see a difference in how our children respond. And that's why we have teachers who are very, very successful. I think of a teacher who I love dearly, Miss Loretta Dwallow Towns, over there in the Roseville area schools. She's such a darn good creative teacher. And by doing it that way, it makes her students appreciate her. And when students appreciate you, then they're going to do their best. Right. And we don't have enough of that. And so I always have to go back to what's the root of it. And if we can get that, the more those kids grow up and then they become parents, because the truth of the matter is our young people are becoming parents very early. We have grandparents oftentimes who aren't even 30. But if you haven't taught these generations the right stuff early on, then it just gets watered down, and their desire for success dwindles because they don't understand what it is. So it's our job to make sure that Blackness is understood. That's why I do, and a lot of people, we love that Wakanda story. That Wakanda story shows what success can be. And I'm my hat over here. We have a project called Realizing Wakanda that we're doing at Minnesota Humanities Center. Began with a partnership we had with ALF. But Realizing Wakanda, and what is it that made Wakanda something that we all want to be?
Yeah.
So we've got to be realistic about what's missing and how do we begin to shape that. So for me, I'm going to jump into this real quick before you tell me to shut up. The play, the arts, creativity, we tap into that. So for years, we've done storytelling with young people. We've done creative arts and designs with people to help them to understand how to teach young people through the arts. So this play that we're about to talk about, Kumbaya, the Juneteenth story, that will be done this Friday, and it's, I wrote that play over 25 years ago, darn near 30.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just as relevant now as it was then. And we see that with things that have been around for years, right? We see that something might have been, I love that song by The Impressions, I think, If We Had a Choice of Color. How many years ago did they write that song? And yet here it is just as relevant today. How often does James Brown holler, you know, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud.
Right.
And our kids need to understand that they can holler, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud too.
Hey, we need to make that a new challenge.
I heard that because there's so many other not cool challenges. That's
Right.
one of and I had to catch myself, Kim, and there's not a lot of cool challenges out there, but absolutely that would be one of them. And Ms. McGee, I just love the fact what you broke down, and I just want to unpack a couple things because you dropped a lot of knowledge on us here. And one of the things that I had said even before the show, Ms. McGee, was the fact that a lot of our young people don't understand the history of Juneteenth. And I say that, and I'll give the caveat, like I don't want to be that old person that be like, you know, the get off my lawn type person. And I say that to say because you're absolutely right. The educational system let us down, right? It let us down because absolutely they watered down the history. They tried to hide the history. And I don't blame the young people, right, for not knowing about Juneteenth. However, it is up to us, and you're 100% right, to be able to be teachers, as parents, as educators, as people who are in a position where we have lived life. We have to be able to get back and have to seek that education and learning to teach our babies and our young people about the history of Juneteenth and why that's significant falls on us. Am I correct, Ms. McGee? If the teachers are letting us down and the education assistants let us down, that falls on us, right?
Yeah, it really does. And, you know, we have educators who are looking for resources. Where are the resources they want to know? How do we gain access to so that we can teach better, so that we can be truthful in what we teach? I'll never forget sitting in a session that we were doing years ago with Minnesota Humanities. And, there was a white woman in the room who said, "I'm not going to teach that." And we were talking about, the incident that happened right out there at Fort Snelling, the encampment that happened. And she said the idea of now trying to go back and tell people that we had indigenous people encamped and we were doing this horrible thing. I can't do that. I can't teach that. And I was sitting there like, what do I say?
Right.
How do I respond to this? Because she's coming from the manner in which she's been raised, how she's been taught. And that's the situation that we're dealing with here. People operate according to what it is that's been put in them to operate on. So if they want to believe that certain things never happen, and, that's what's going on right now. People don't want to hear about any slavery. They don't want to hear about we had this kind of thing that happened. Nobody wants to hear. People don't even want to hear about the fact that George Floyd was murdered right there and they saw it. They don't want to acknowledge what we saw with Philando Castile. I mean, all of these things that we see across the country of our black men and women being murdered, and people do not want to acknowledge that. Yeah. So that's a whole nother thing, right? But for the play, we try our best to bring this in an uplifting manner as best we can about a very horrific time in this country. And I am really honored that Breck School is hosting the play again, and Minnesota Humanities is partnering with Sweet Potato Comfort Pie to make sure that these shows are not only going to be here in the Twin Cities on Friday at Breck School at 10 a.m. or 7 p.m., but also we're traveling to 3 other communities in the state. We're going actually on Monday the 19th, the holiday itself. We're going over to St. Peter, Minnesota, and we're going to do the play there at 5:30 p.m. And then we'll go down to Rochester, Minnesota on the 22nd of June and be in the community twice with the school presentation in the morning. These are kids who are in school for the summer. And then in the evening for the evening performance for community. And then we'll wrap it up on Saturday the 24th in St. Cloud with the presentation at 6 p.m.
Yeah, you're
so
gonna be busy.
Yeah, they're on a tour.
We're going to be
They're on a
bouncing up
tour.
and down that highway. And, it's just a beautiful thing. And let me also say, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. And it is important that we understand what Juneteenth is. This should not become this big commercialized sort of thing where it's important that, you're going in and you're doing all this darn shopping around stuff and you don't even know why you're buying it and why you're wearing stuff.
Yeah,
so it's really key. And that's actually how the play came up in the first place. Years ago, it was the Twin Cities Juneteenth Committee that contacted me and said, can you write something educational so that people will know what this really is that they're celebrating in this festival and in this parade. So that's how it all started, and that's how it's been, and we laid low for a few years, and now we've revised this thing, and we've revived and reside. What am I trying to say? Revived
and revived.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
We revived it because we did a little bit of tweaking, and now we are trying to make sure that community and educators and parents and families understand. And it's deeper than just Juneteenth itself. It's about understanding what freedom is, and how do you understand how to treat yourself in a manner that says you're free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ms. McGee.
Go ahead.
One of the things that is the reason why this is one of my favorite shows, obviously because I could have you come on and talk for hours, right, about the history of Juneteenth and the play and everything else, because it's a really important topic. And one of the things that always, kind of gets at me is I only have a 30-minute show, right? So you have dropped so much knowledge on us, so I want to just make sure I unpack this, and we've got about 9 minutes left in our show. And one of the things I want to unpack, and I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, is you are 100% right. One of the things that I've been seeing lately over the last maybe 5 years, right, is there a lot of Juneteenth celebration. There used to be just one, and then over the years it's kind of evolved, took a break, and then it's turned into, a lot of festivals all around. Like I've looked up, I have never seen so many Juneteenth celebrations in our city and our surrounding suburbs. And to me, there is some good and bad to that. The good is, to me, is that community is taking Juneteenth into their own hands, right? And celebrating what Juneteenth looks like to them, right? But one of the other things that really kind of gives me pause is the fact that a lot of it is watered down, Miss McGee. A lot of it is turned into different table and events, and that's okay too. But what about the history? Who's teaching the history? What booth is there? What speaker is there to talk about the exact history on why we are celebrating this? Why are we here talking about Juneteenth? And it's not just getting a swag bag, right? And filling up your bag and just going around. Because I see a lot of that, and it's no disrespect. But it goes on to the fact that you are talking about that, right? We need to understand the reasons why we're here. So you going to St. Peter, you're going to St. Cloud, you're going to Rochester. You are branching out, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I say this to say to you as we close down the show, Miss McGee, what are your hopes and your wishes for our people in this community on how we celebrate Juneteenth in the city of Minneapolis?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. One of the things I want to say is when we do what we do, we try to keep it brought through some contextual authenticity. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Absolutely does.
But I want to be real frank, and I'm hoping I'm not offending anyone out there listening, but, we have to be careful how our story is told, and we keep saying we need to tell our story. And it's okay if we get some research from folk. I'm honored that Elder Mahmoud El-Khadi was where I went to get my research from as I worked on this production.
Wow.
But, I think about how white people can step into something and all of a sudden it becomes the thing. It becomes because somebody white has now said it.
They took it over.
Really and it's almost as though, it's just gospel because somebody white said it. But then, you look up and you see something like, why the heck didn't they ask somebody? Ask somebody before you just jump out there with that, because most likely if they jump out there with that, somebody out there listening is going to embrace that because it's coming from there. It's coming from them. So we, as black people, really need to do a better job of supporting that which comes from us, just as we ourselves need to do a good job of putting quality stuff out there that's real. So that's one thing. And the other thing is give ourselves some grace, folks. I watch how we can come down on each other so hard when something isn't quite right or it didn't go the way, come on now. You still are okay when somebody out there makes a mistake and you say, okay, yeah, well, no, I'll go back anyhow. So you got to do the same thing with each other and give each other grace, because that's set up sometimes to be the way it is to be received, so that it creates more divisiveness. So these are the kinds of things that concern me these days. When I look, I'm interested in how our young people are developing, but I'm also interested in that disrespect that needs to be kind of, dismantled when it comes to our young people and our elders. So there's much. On that note, I do want to say I'm sorry Miss Julian Jackson didn't make it. She's trying to be in two places at once.
She's a busy woman, too.
Yeah.
She is, and I respect her so much, and her daughter, and I just really do appreciate them and all that they've contributed over the years. So I do want to say that because I know she was planning to be a part of this conversation.
Right.
Listen,
and I want to can I shout out to Kevin Lindsay over there at Minnesota Humanities for just being the visionary that he has been of trying to make sure that what is being done through this organization reaches across the state, and not just black, productions, but other ethnicities as well. The organization is very good at that.
Ms. McGee, I mean, you held this whole show down.
She did. She did. And everybody was, we were all just listening.
Yes.
It's important to listen. So you really captured our attention, and we needed to hear this today.
Absolutely. Ms. McGee, one of the beautiful things that I'm going to take away from this conversation is just, first of all, your presence and how you share your information, and you definitely have some hopes and dreams. And one of the things I'm going to take away from what you said is just give each other grace, right?
Yes.
I think we have to always remember that. That's the most important thing. And you, I can't even say it better than you. I won't attempt to either, but just the fact that we are always trying to find ways to knock each other down instead of lifting each other up. And Juneteenth, to me, if you're not going to do it anytime, but you should do it all the time, this is the time that you should be able to do it.
Yes, I love to see everybody come together.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. That's what Jubilee is about. I was so honored to have been invited by Miss Monique Linder, who is the producer of OMG. She's wonderful, by the way. If you don't know her,
I know Miss Linder.
Me too.
Well, she's awesome. And I got a chance to go with her to Galveston. And when I heard, when we went to, she's done a film that will be released on Monday, called From Galveston to Minnesota. It's really a beautiful, beautiful piece. And we went to this historic church there in Galveston. And this is where many of the black people, when they heard General Gordon Granger, give the announcement that people were now free, they went to that particular church. And it was really beautiful the way the historical account of that is. All of these black people wanted to go and be together and to be in unity to give praise for what they had been praying for generations, right? And that, it just moved me. It gave me chills. And I thought, that's the kind of energy, that's the kind of synergy, and that's the kind of unity that we need to pull.
Yeah.
How do we get that? And I know that there are organizations who are trying, but I think, and, again, I may say something that everybody may not agree on, but we don't do a good job of walking the talk. We can put that talk out there so great, and then we turn around and we just bash it. Yeah. So we just got to uphold that stuff better and be able to move. That's how change happens.
Yeah.
And that's how unity happens. Unity happens when people feel that they can trust the voices that are bringing the message, and they can trust, the organizations that are leading and guiding. And, you've got many organizations that are supposed to be for us, but they aren't even led by us.
Right.
So how do you, and again, here we go. We can't make a mistake in any of these organizations where they will go, oh, no, see, that's why you can't put them in charge.
Absolutely.
So much.
Yes. So much, Miss McGee. And I want to thank you. And just real quick, because I got to wrap this show up. One of the things about Miss Linda, we used to do a civil rights research experience, and she was on our team when we took a bunch of young people from the Robbinsville School District. She came with us on a few of those experiences, and she was just wonderful. So,
wow,
Miss McGee, thank you, sister,
Yes,
for being able to grace us with your presence, and I appreciate you being here today.
Yes, I have the perfect song to end this show.
You always got the perfect song, so appreciate it. Thank you, Miss McGee.
Thanks, Miss McGee. We love you.
Take care. Love you all too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'm going to throw it to you, sister. What you got?
Oh, man.
Close us out.
I'm going to close you out. The name of the song is Free, and it is by Perry Jones.
All right.